All right, welcome back. Final hour of In Game Live Game Day here on SportsGrid. And as we have been doing here for weeks on the program, we're going team by team across the NFL, previewing every team's season in 2025. We've done the bulk of the AFC. Only the AFC East remains, and that begins tonight. The Bills, the Patriots, this hour. Tomorrow we'll get to the Jets and Dolphins because I guess we have to. But it begins with a team that has very nearly the best odds to win the Super Bowl, the Buffalo Bills, which is interesting behind those Baltimore Ravens. Looking at it right now, and you can see on your screen just a little bit about this team. You're looking at 7-1 to win the Super Bowl on FanDuel, minus 290 to win the AFC East. Can the Patriots give them any threat? We'll see. Plus 340 to win the conference, of course, make the playoffs, minus 850. My God. Plus 540 to miss the playoffs. There's a healthy number there. And really interesting is the over-under at 11.5. Why is that really interesting? It's not so much the number, but the odds associated with it. To go over 12-plus wins, you are looking at minus 165. That is disgusting. Meanwhile, plus 140 to go under 11.5. So it makes you really think, what are reasonable expectations for the reigning MVP, Josh Allen, under Sean McDermott once again, and this offense, especially the defense on the other side, all of it. How does it all come together? What does it look like? We're going to get boots on the ground here and great insights here from our next guest. Carl Jones joins us, who former football player at Syracuse University, by the way. I just would like to mention that personally as a Syracuse guy. But Carl on Twitter at Jones11 and an underscore. He is part of News 4 in Buffalo. Carl, how are you?
I'm all good. Thank you for bringing me on, and I'm loving the Syracuse love already. We're going to get along just fine.
Absolutely. So look, this team has won the division. I mean, for so long. I mean, I'm a Patriots guy. Boston's my backyard, or Foxborough, as it were, for the Pats. For so many years, it was the Patriots' division to lose. That has flipped. Since 2020, the Bills have won this division every single year. It is 5 running right now, and it's second active streak in the NFL to the Chiefs at 9. So let's just begin with this. Is there? I almost it's hard not to laugh when I ask the question. Is there any reasonable threat to Buffalo to win this division? If, God forbid, Josh Allen got hurt in week 2, is this still the Bills' division to lose?
I truthfully can't see a scenario where any other team in the AFC East can challenge them, at least in this year. Obviously, the Jets are in a sort of a transition with Aaron Glenn over there now. Miami, God knows what they want to do. Are they trying to rebuild? Are they trying to go for the future? Who knows? And then, although I think we all can agree the Patriots have had a really, really interesting and probably good offseason, they're probably a year away from legitimately competing against the Buffalo Bills week in and week out. So they didn't lose a lot this offseason. Quite frankly, I don't think they lost much. So I don't think there's anything that will knock them off that pedestal once again of being the front runners for the division.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Carl. And I think you're spot on with the Patriots. I'm not ready to buy in on them just yet either. However, if we're looking at their season win total, I've seen 11.5, I've seen 12.5. It feels to me like they could slide a bit because everything went so well last year. And not only Josh Allen being the MVP, is he going to be able to sustain that level of play? You would think he can't go much higher. Is he going to come back a little bit? And then the other thing is they were incredibly healthy. They had great injury luck last year, and yet still did not, get to the ultimate prize of the Super Bowl. Would you expect that there is possible concern here that they could slip just a little bit, still win the division, but maybe they don't look as good doing it as they did last year?
I think that's fair to say. There are 2 areas where you can say there can be some regression. You mentioned the injury luck. The offensive line has been extremely healthy dating back to 2023 as well. I believe Spencer Brown, the right tackle, was the only starter to miss a game last year, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs regular season game where they still found out a way to come out on top. 2023, they were all healthy. The other department, turnover luck. They didn't have a running back lose a fumble all year long, and if you were to watch the Bills, there were some comically lucky fumbles that ended up back in James Cook's and Ray Davis's hands. So I think those 2 departments will, we all know how the NFL works. There's a lot of one-possession games where one turnover, one fumble accidentally goes your way. Josh Allen took care of the ball last year. Who knows if that'll happen again in 2025? But I think those 2 areas probably regress to the mean to a certain extent, and they won't necessarily pull away from all those games like they did in 2024.
Bills 15-5 last year, including, of course, the playoffs, straight up 12-8 against the spread for those out there wondering entering the new year. What I think is really interesting for Josh Allen and just the extra feather in his cap, Carl, was, for all the gaudy numbers that he put up, and to me, he was the MVP throughout the year. I didn't understand comparatively the Lamar Jackson love. I never thought he had a chance, and I know it was awfully close in terms of the vote by the end. But, Allen passed for north of 4,200 yards, 40 touchdowns. But the fascinating thing was he did it without a true number one receiver. You had Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. None of these guys exceeded even 850 yards. So you welcome in now Elijah Moore is there, Josh Palmer is there, changes the dynamic a little bit, but you still don't have, like, it's not Stephon Diggs when he was there. You still don't have that bona fide number one option. So does the offense ultimately look really similar in terms of the production guy to guy?
I would say so as well. I mean, Khalil Shakir here in Western New York is underrated. Everyone feels as if he gets slighted by the masses, but I truthfully think he's probably slotted properly as a really good slot receiver that doesn't necessarily have the high-end traits to be a one. And Josh Palmer will fit in nice. As we all probably heard last year, the Bills don't have a separator. The offense feels clogged down and bogged down at times. I think Josh Palmer will fit and help out in that department to a certain extent. Keon Coleman, that's not his game whatsoever. He's more of a above the rim power forward wide receiver that they'll deploy. So I expect it to be another everybody eats theme this year that they love to deploy. They got the hats for it, shirts, all type of thing. Where 1 week Ty Johnson will lead them in receiving. One day it'll be James Cook. Dawson Knox might eat that day. I think it'll be a by committee approach once again this season, unless I would say Keon Coleman takes that year two leap. He's looked pretty solid so far in camp thus far, but I don't know if he has that on deck, at least in 2025.
Carl, this team went heavy in on defense in both the draft and the offseason, trades and free agency acquisition. The first 5 players they drafted were on the defensive side, 6 out of 9 overall, and 6 out of 9 of the free agents all on the defensive side. Obviously, that's been an issue for this team in their inability to get to the Super Bowl. Is this going to be enough?
We're going to find out relatively soon, aren't we? I mean, Joey Bosa is healthy. He's healthy right now. I will say that he is healthy as of August 2nd. He's out there running around at training camp. They brought in the rookies as well, whether that's Landon Jackson, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker. All those young guys are flying around. We'll find out. Max Harrison is out right now, the first-round pick cornerback out of Kentucky, dealing with an LCL sprain. We'll find out. Bills Mafia, I've been telling them all year, they're the one team where I don't want to ignore what happens from September to December, but you really kind of have to a certain extent because they look totally different every single year in January.
A lot of draft picks spent in that secondary. Hairston, of course, as you mentioned. And look, it's a pass defense that is going to need to be a lot better next season. For anyone that is unaware, the Bills allowed the secondary the 5th most air yards across the NFL, 8th most passing touchdowns last year. The offense was not the issue. This team was putting up 30-plus points every single week, it felt like. But the defense, teams were keeping up. That was an issue. So we're going to come on back more with Carl Jones on these Bills. Get to James Cook in that backfield as well. We have Carl Jones with us from News 4 Buffalo, looking ahead to the 2025 Bills season. Of course, this is a team that is widely expected to win the AFC East, maybe even the conference. Of course, a contender for the Super Bowl, talking a lot about the reigning MVP, Josh Allen, expectations for the offense in general. Will it be everybody eats? Will it be receiver one by committee? All of that. Let's talk about the backfield here, Carl. With James Cook coming off of back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons, there are people out there that will believe, football fans, that, look, you could bring in a dude off the street that with durability and opportunity is going to almost easily rush for 1,000 yards in a season. Not that I want to diminish that accomplishment, but it doesn't maybe mean what it used to. Here's what jumps off the charts, though, is 16 rushing touchdowns. That's what he did last year. This dude was a big part of that team's success offensively. And, it wasn't just Josh Allen and all that he was able to do with his legs. Cook was a prime example of what it took to get over the hump in a lot of these games here for the Bills. What can we expect from Cook in the new season? I'm sure another 1,000 yards if he can stay healthy, but in terms of touchdown volume, it was 2-16. What are we going to get in year 4?
I don't know if we're necessarily going to get at that pace again. I mean, 16 is a whole lot. But I think it would be safe to say that he will fall in that, let's say, median range of like 10 or 11. They really, despite him being a smaller-ish back, I believe he's sub 200, they utilize him down there on the goal line. And it's sort of a bit of a cheat code because we've watched Bills games. Josh Allen's usually the tush-push guy down there once they get to an end. But James Cook, he will also steal some of those carries as well and get into the end zone. So he really fits what they do on offense. They have a really stout group of guys up front. The offensive line, in my opinion, is one of the better units in all of football. But they're maulers, and James Cook is more explosive and more of an elusive speed guy. And the fact that when he can find a crease, when those guys open up a crease like that, good luck catching him. I just remember that snow game against the San Francisco 49ers where it looked like everyone was running slow because they were running in 3 feet of snow, but he was the fastest guy in that environment. So I'm really excited to see what he can do in 2025.
You know, Carl,
his prop rating is 8.5, just to let you know. 8.5 touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, the odds makers feel there could be some regression as well. And, you know, we were touching on that like type half. Of thing. Right. I mean, Carl, you mentioned the fumble luck. Number 1 in football. They really caught some breaks there. James Cook rushing for 16 touchdowns. Turnover margin is plus 24. Sack margin plus 25. Penalty margin plus 15. 5-3 in one-score games. 3-2 in field goal games. I talked about how that everything went so swimmingly with their health. If you're a betting man and you're looking at that win total of 11.5, are you going over or under? Because it seems they're set up to regress. But then conversely, if you just go by projected win totals, they have the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL.
Playing the NFC South this year, I think, really helps them. And they get all of their heavy hitters in terms of the powerhouse teams on their schedule at home. They get Baltimore week 1 at home. And when you think about Baltimore and how complex and just different their offense is, you know, all the Lamar Jackson read option stuff where you have to prepare for that on 4 to 5 day notice. It's difficult, but the Bills have had all season to prepare for that. So that helps for them. Philadelphia comes to Western New York. So do the Chiefs. So do the Bengals. Obviously, those games will not be easy by any means, but you will prefer to play those in your backyard as opposed to going to those places, which are hostile environments. And then, as I just mentioned, you get the Cleveland Browns, you get the NFC South. It bodes well for them to, I believe, creep over that 11.5 marker, and I think that should be pretty feasible for them in 2025.
So where do you put their chances of winning a Super Bowl ultimately? As we know, so much success, so many division championships, all of that, but it's just been a series of ultimately falling short in the playoffs. The Vegas odds makers respect this team right there behind Baltimore in terms of the favorites to ultimately get that Lombardi, but how do you handicap the Bills' chances?
For me personally, when I think of postseason success and the most dominant teams in football, you need stars, not just one. You need multiple to bring to the dance. I think that the Bills, if we were to go through 11 through 53 in terms of the players on the roster, they're about as good as anyone in football. The problem is 1 through 10, that's where they fall short. And in the postseason, when you play against the Kansas City Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes is bringing a Chris Jones, he's bringing a Travis Kelce to the dance with him, a Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis. Josh Allen just doesn't have those dancing partners with him to go toe-to-toe in those environments. And quite frankly, I don't really see the Bills adding those A-list stars this season. So if I had to be a betting man, I would lean the Ravens or the Chiefs or another team in the AFC just based off of the fact that I think the Bills are a really well-constructed roster. But in those one-game formats where you need a guy to make a play, those other teams just have more dudes, I would say, on the rosters.
Carl, I think this has started to surface, and there's been some rumblings, maybe in the Western New York area as well. One of the problems, they continue to come up short. Is one of the problems Sean McDermott?
There's a certain part of the Bills Mafia contingency who believes that he's a defensive-minded head coach, and the Bills defense has struggled in all of their postseason games, at least since Josh Allen has emerged as this superstar player, right? Let's say dating back to 2020. It's been the Bills defense that has let them down. Obviously, you know about the 13 seconds game, 2020. I believe they gave up 35 plus points. When the Cincinnati Bengals came to Highmark Stadium in the snow, they put up a lot of points as well. I personally don't land in that bucket because I still think he's very good, and the roster, like I just mentioned, I don't know if he's not given the right ingredients, I would say, to build the best cake, in my opinion. So it's loud out here, but not too loud where it's deafening and you can't really go out in public, I would say.
Carl, before we're out of time, how do you like Josh Allen to win MVP again? His odds, by the way, are 6-1.
I would not go that direction because, in my opinion, I believe a lot of it was narrative-based, and we know how toxic these debates can get. He won't have the narrative 2 years in a row in terms of lifting a lesser roster.
Very true. Again, Carl Jones, he is of Syracuse fame, by the way. I'm going to mention that as many times as I can. He is on Twitter at Jones11 and an _ News 4 Buffalo. Carl, really enjoyed it, man. Thanks for hopping on with us. We'll bug you again as the season gets going.
Thank you. Have a good one.